Hi, I'm Jason McCartney.
And I'm Adam Coo, a boundary umpire in the Australian Football League.
Today, Adam and I are going to tell you what it takes to become a Level 2 boundary umpire, which is an important step towards fulfilling your dream of officiating in an AFL match just like Adam.
This DVD will take you through all the information and knowledge you require to obtain your Level 2 accreditation. Let's begin with the qualities of an umpire.
Umpires require strong character if they are to cope with the umpiring environment in a positive manner. Qualities like integrity, honesty, trustworthiness, respect, responsibility all provide a strong reference points for the umpire in terms of what they do, say and are. Actions of an umpire can be linked to the qualities of an umpire. They are responsible for their actions and attitude, and the adage of treating people as you would like to be treated provides an appropriate model for relating to others in the football environment. Everything an umpire does and is can be related to their personal qualities. In addition to the Level 1 qualities, these include taking on some responsibility within the umpiring group and sharing knowledge and experience with others. The umpire should have an approach and style that includes others, regardless of the player's gender, race, disability, religion or age.
People associated with football have certain expectations of umpires. They expect them to be responsible, prepared for their role and competent. Whilst the field umpires play the leading role, umpiring is a team game and field umpires rely heavily on their support crew, the boundary and goal umpires. Teamwork is an essential factor in a good umpiring performance. The boundary umpires play a key supporting role and should never underestimate their importance to the presentation and quality of the game. The role of the boundary umpire can be described as follows: interpret and apply the laws relating to boundary umpiring with common sense and in accordance with the spirit of the game. Attend to the administrative requirements necessary for the successful staging of the game. When required to do so, the boundary umpire is expected to undertake any administrative tasks on match day in a professional manner and ensure a safe environment for the participants. The boundary umpire should undertake a pre-match inspection of the boundary line area and surrounds.
Whether at training sessions, coaching sessions or on match day, a positive, enthusiastic and responsible attitude towards umpiring can be demonstrated in the following ways: accepting responsibilities, actively encouraging others, receiving and discussing feedback, ensuring all work is completed to schedule and meets the required standard.
Good presentation is important for umpires and umpiring. All boundary umpires have a responsibility to present themselves in a professional manner on match day. The boundary umpire is expected to have a clean and neat uniform and the necessary equipment for the role: whistle, notepad and pencil. It is important to remember that the match in which the boundary umpire is officiating is the most important match that day to those participating in it.
Effective interpersonal skills are attributes which are common to successful umpires. There will be many opportunities on match days for umpires to demonstrate their interpersonal skills. A philosophy for umpiring Australian football should include having a consistent approach in ensuring the game is played in accordance with the spirit of the laws. The approach or philosophy should be firstly to ensure that correct position is achieved. Secondly, remain calm and composed in making decisions. Third, make the correct decision. And finally, signalling in a confident and decisive manner. A match plan can assist umpires in their approach to umpiring Australian football. A major reason for having a match plan is to provide the umpire with guidance in ensuring that they don't overlook vital aspects of the match and should include the fundamentals of boundary umpiring, which would apply to any match, irrespective of the level of football. That should include: be positive and give positive confidence signals for out of bounds. Communicate clearly when giving decisions. Run hard and as hard as necessary to achieve correct position for all contests and decisions. Be alert because unexpected events occur in matches. Expect the unexpected. Have the courage of your convictions. Pay what you see, irrespective of the state of the match. Fulfill your role without fear or favour. And concentrate on what is happening now, not on what is past or what is to come. Preparation for umpiring the match is an important responsibility of the umpire. It includes revising the laws of Australian football prior to the match and being up to date with current interpretations, and being in good mental and physical condition to umpire the match. This will help prevent build-up of fatigue.
Modern football is based on moving the ball quickly, and the boundary umpire must be physically conditioned in order to achieve the best position from which to adjudicate. As a person becomes physically fatigued, their concentration level drops, as does their capacity to perceive events. The higher the level of fatigue, the greater the drop in concentration. The more highly developed the areas of fitness are, the better prepared the boundary umpire is to meet the physical demands of the game and to resist fatigue.
A nutritionally sound diet is essential in achieving maximum performance on the sporting field and for immediate and future health. Umpires shouldn't wait until they're thirsty to take in fluids. Thirst is a poor indicator of fluid needs, and they must get into the habit of regularly consuming water before, during and after training and matches. The best fluid to take during training sessions is cool water. During matches, however, umpires will benefit from commercial sports drink, which provides carbohydrate and fluid in a rapidly absorbed form. Failure to consume fluids can lead to dehydration, which will not only adversely affect the umpire's performance, but can also be very dangerous. It is important that umpires consume carbohydrate as soon as practical after the match is finished. This should be followed by a high carbohydrate meal that evening. In addition, they should remember to rehydrate with plenty of water. It should be also noted that alcohol consumption and tobacco smoking can adversely impact on an umpire's performance and contribute to poor physical fitness and poor health. Umpires need to be proactive to minimise the risk of sun-related damage to their skin. That can be achieved by protecting themselves from the sun with appropriate clothing, including a hat and the application of sunscreen at training and during matches.
Improving umpiring performance is the goal of most umpires, regardless of what level they officiate. A strategy that the umpire can employ is to undertake a process of self-reflection. In this process, the umpire reviews an action and considers what went well and what didn't, identifies an aspect of the umpiring which needs to be changed, develops a strategy for change, implements the strategies at the next match, and reviews those actions and repeats the process. The umpire can use a diary to record their reflections, which can assist the umpire with identifying areas and strategies for improving umpiring performance.
An important role umpires can play, and one that can assist their own development, is to assist the development of less experienced umpires. That can occur in a number of ways, including mentoring, observing and providing feedback to umpires, and conducting coaching or training sessions for umpires. Mentoring is where one person helps another to grow and develop skills and attitudes. A mentoring umpire can help someone to see their strengths and weaknesses, clarify what goals and needs they have, identify further options and directions, determine the action necessary to achieve their goals, assist in overcoming barriers to progress, and assist them to acquire the skills and knowledge they require to move forward. The mentor should encourage, offer advice, question and challenge the umpire, but generally not tell the umpire everything because they need to learn.
Another important way umpires can assist the development of other umpires is to observe their performance and provide them with feedback. When observing, key points to consider are: concentrate on the key aspects of the performance, be accurate with the details about the major aspects of the performance which will be reinforced with the umpire, and be objective. Following the observation, the observing umpire should refer to recorded notes to draw out the major points that will be discussed with the umpire. Umpires should be given feedback on their performance, which enables the umpire to identify strengths and areas for improvement. Feedback should be discussed with, not told to, umpires. Umpires should be engaged in this process and encouraged to explore strategies for addressing the areas for improvement.
Prior to conducting a coaching or training session, it is important that the umpire is aware of the coaching needs of the group they will be working with. Once the coaching needs have been identified, then the coaching session outline can be considered and developed. An important ingredient in presenting a coaching session, as in umpiring a match, is preparation, ensuring that you have planned the session and have the appropriate equipment to conduct the session.
The umpire has a duty of care to ensure that the ground is safe for the commencement of the match. It's important that umpires develop strategies to assist them to cope with the umpiring environment. Umpires can use the pre-match period to acknowledge and communicate with other participants, taking the opportunity to establish and build a relationship, especially with players. A firm and friendly approach with confident decision making and clear communication will win the respect of players and others. The match environment can become unpleasant with conflict between players, which the umpire will have to respond to and intervene, or it may involve abuse from players. It's important in these situations that the umpires do not let the poor behaviour of others affect their concentration and decision making. Umpires need to be aware that supporters get emotional and vocal with their support for their team and players, and that generally the verbal attack on players and umpires is not meant as a personal attack. It is important for umpires to ignore the comments and block them out of their mind. Concentrating on the task at hand will assist umpires to remain focused. After the match, it's good practice to join the players and officials in a social setting, especially if invited. It provides an opportunity to get to know players and club officials and to strengthen the relationship with them.
Umpires have a legal responsibility to exercise reasonable care to eliminate foreseeable hazards in the conduct of the match and to ensure the safety of the environmental conditions under which it is played. The following duties have been identified as those which umpires owe to the players under their control. Duty to enforce laws, duty to protect participants, duty to warn, duty to anticipate reasonable foreseeable dangers, duty to control and supervise the match, monitor racial vilification.
Effective communication is a key ingredient for effective umpiring. In controlling the match, the boundary umpire is called upon to make certain decisions. It is important, therefore, that boundary umpires be firm and assertive in their approach. Umpires have developed strategies and techniques in the art of effective communication that have stood the test of time and proven to be beneficial to players, umpires, and the conduct of the match. Included among those strategies and techniques are the following: keep calm, treat players with respect, use positive and appropriate body language, listen attentively, communicate decisions, do not embarrass players, penalise actions not characters, selectively ignore comments, avoid sarcasm, and do not try to have the last word.
The umpire's duties are not always completed once the final siren has sounded. If an umpire has reported a player during the course of the match, they will need to complete and check the report of player form within any specified time period. Sign each copy of the report, ensure that writing is legible and that spelling is correct, meet controlling body requirements relating to wording and content of reports.
It's crucial that boundary umpires have a comprehensive knowledge and understanding of the laws which are relevant to their duties and responsibilities. For the ball to be out of bounds, it must be completely over the boundary line or have hit the behind post after first having touched the ground or having been touched by a player. If any portion of the ball is on or above the boundary line, the ball is still in play. The boundary umpire shall be the final judge of when the ball is out of bounds or out of bounds on the full, except when advised by the goal umpire in relation to a score or when the ball hits or goes directly over the behind post. In the event that the boundary umpire signals the ball out of bounds and the signal is not acknowledged by the field umpire and play continues on, the boundary umpire shall run after the field umpire, blowing their whistle loudly as they do so, in order to attract the field umpire's attention and notify them that the ball is out of bounds. When a field umpire has awarded a free kick or applied a 50-metre penalty after the ball crossed the boundary line, but prior to the boundary umpire notifying them, out of bounds lapses. In the event that a score is registered after the ball has crossed the boundary line and prior to the boundary umpire notifying the field umpire must order the score to be annulled and the ball be taken back to where it crossed the boundary line to be brought back into play.
A player who takes a kick from outside the boundary line must bring the ball into play from or behind the spot where the mark or free kick was awarded. If a player goes back to take their kick from outside the boundary line and kicks or handballs the ball which does not cross the line into play, the boundary umpire will signal the ball out of bounds and the field umpire will direct that the ball be thrown in by the boundary umpire from the spot where the kick or handball had been taken. The player plays on or attempts to play on outside the boundary line between the fence and the man on the mark. The field umpire shall call play on. Immediately the play on call is heard, the boundary umpire shall signal the ball out of bounds and throw the ball in as directed by the field umpire. The player plays on by heading into the playing area. The boundary umpire shall not signal out of bounds. If a player on the defending team takes a kick beyond the goal or behind line, and the ball hits either the goal or behind post, another kick will be taken. A player may handball the ball instead of kicking it from outside the boundary line. Although a player who has possession of the ball may be outside the boundary line, the ball is not out of bounds unless the ball is completely over the boundary line.
Didak and Thomas, he read that beautifully, Dale Thomas.
The boundary umpire should assist the field umpire by facing them and nodding their head whilst placing their hands behind their back as an indication that the ball has been marked, then quickly move off in the direction of the scoring zone of the team which has been awarded the mark. If the field umpire is in doubt as to whether the ball has been marked before it passed completely over the boundary line, they should consult the boundary umpire only after the boundary umpire has blown their whistle and given the touched out of bounds signal.
If a player kicks the football over the boundary line on the full, or the ball hits the behind post on the full, without first being touched by a player or hitting the ground, a free kick shall be awarded where the ball crosses the boundary line or adjacent to the behind post. If a ball is kicked into an umpire, trainer or runner and crosses the boundary line on the full without first being touched or hitting the ground, the ball is regarded as having been kicked out of bounds on the full. Players are not permitted to enter the centre square after the field umpire has commenced their approach to bounce or throw the ball up until the ball touches the ground in the act of bouncing or is thrown up. The boundary umpire is the sole judge as to whether a player has stepped completely over the line at the centre square. The player may lean over the line, but immediately their foot is grounded inside the centre square, the boundary umpire will blow their whistle, call the name of the offending club, then quickly move off in the direction of the scoring zone of the team which has been awarded the free kick. Monitoring the number of players in the square is the responsibility of the field umpires. The boundary umpire can only penalise a player going into the square, not coming out of the square, if they realise there are too many players in there in the first place. Officials in the square at the time of a centre bounce are deemed to be a player, for example a trainer, runner or water person. Once the field umpire commences their approach to bounce the ball or throw the ball up, no other player or official may enter the square.
One of the responsibilities of a boundary umpire is to report reportable offences. Boundary umpires must be aware of reportable offences as prescribed in the laws of Australian football, Law 19.2.2. They must also be aware of controlling body requirements. When a boundary umpire observes a reportable incident, they are required to make a report. It is essential that the players involved in the reportable incident are advised by the boundary umpire of the report and what the charge is at an appropriate time following the incident. When advising the player, the boundary umpire should ask the player if they understand what they have been reported for, whatever the charge is. They should then advise any other player directly involved in the incident of the report. The boundary umpire should make a brief note in their notebook at that time. If play has stopped or is on the other side of the ground, the boundary umpire will make the report immediately. However, if play is in progress in the vicinity of the boundary umpire's boundary line, they will continue with play and supervise the boundary line. They will inform the players concerned at the first opportunity. For example, after a goal has been scored, provided the player is in the presence of a field umpire or otherwise in the presence of a field umpire prior to the commencement of the next quarter. In all cases, common sense must prevail and the umpire's first concern is supervising the boundary line. In the event that play has stopped and a melee develops, the boundary umpire is to remain approximately 10 metres from the melee and take note of events. The appropriate action is to be taken at the conclusion of the melee by making a report if warranted, or by speaking to the players involved if a caution is warranted. Implementing on-field procedures correctly will minimise the possibility of a charge being dismissed on a technicality. There are many factors that influence control, the most critical for boundary umpires being the manner in which they go about their tasks. Boundary umpires need to demonstrate that they're in control and that there are three ways in which they can do this. Firstly, boundary umpires have to have the courage of their convictions to make the right decisions irrespective of the circumstances whenever the need to make the decision arises. Secondly, boundary umpires need to demonstrate confidence in their decision, and this can be demonstrated by strong signals being performed in the correct manner on every occasion. Thirdly, effective control is demonstrated by handling players and situations in an appropriate manner. Boundary umpires need to stay cool, irrespective of how animated or heated players' behaviour may be. Whilst the ball must be kept under observation at all times, it's important for boundary umpires to be alert for potentially volatile situations. However, remember that where play continues, you must continue with play. Being alert includes being aware of what's going on around you in the immediate area.
Where a boundary umpire throws the ball in within 35 to 40 metres from the behind post, the other boundary umpire must take up position behind the behind post. Where there is a field bounce or throw up within 20 metres from goal, the boundary umpires will position themselves behind the behind posts. Where the field bounce or throw up is further out from goal, the boundary umpires must position themselves on the boundary line in line with the field bounce or throw up. When a boundary throw-in occurs within 5 metres of the behind post, the boundary umpire shall immediately after throwing the ball in endeavour to take up position directly behind the behind post. This is to assist the goal umpire should the ball head towards the goal or behind area. When the boundary umpire is required to run to the behind post, the boundary umpire should run directly to the post, turning to run backwards when required in order to keep the ball under observation. This is consistent with the general principle of running a match facing the play at all times. There are times during the game when the boundary umpire needs to alter their running form. Performances are enhanced by changing speed where the need arises. A boundary umpire should increase the pace of their running to ensure good position is achieved from which to adjudicate in the following situations. When a player is having a set shot at goal, it's necessary to sprint to the behind post to assist the goal umpire. Watch the player with the ball at all times. You should sprint to the behind post to assist the goal umpire. Both boundary umpires must accelerate whilst relaying the ball back to the centre. Boundary umpires will often need to accelerate in order to keep correct position and stay up with the play.
There are a number of signals that could be given during the course of a match. When the ball goes out of bounds, the boundary umpire will blow their whistle and give the appropriate signal. When the ball goes outside the boundary line, after having touched the ground or having been touched by a player, the boundary umpire should blow the whistle loudly and extend one arm straight up with an open hand. Should the ball be touched prior to going out of bounds on the full, the boundary umpire should blow their whistle loudly and indicate as previously stated, then tap the back of their open hand in the upright position 3 times. The boundary umpire should face the field umpire until the field umpire indicates that the ball can be thrown in from where the ball crossed the line. When the ball goes outside the boundary line on the full, directly from a kick and not having been touched by a player, the boundary umpire shall blow their whistle loudly and extend both arms horizontally, straight out from the shoulder with open hands parallel to the boundary line. Again, the boundary umpire shall face the field umpire until the field umpire confirms the free kick or pays an overriding decision. Where appropriate, the boundary umpire will then indicate by pointing to the spot where the ball crossed the line prior to moving to position for the resultant free kick. The boundary umpire shall indicate the spot where the ball crossed the line whenever they are within 15 metres.
When the ball bounces off a player above the knee and goes out of bounds on the full, the boundary umpire shall blow their whistle loudly and extend one arm straight up with an open hand. This will be followed by raising a leg and tapping their thigh 3 times to signify to the field umpire that it was not a legitimate kick and therefore it is a normal out of bounds decision. When a player attempts to mark the ball on or before it passes completely over the boundary line and the ball rebounds off that player's hands or chest and is reclaimed and finally held after it had passed completely over the boundary line, the ball is out of bounds. The boundary umpire will blow their whistle, look at the field umpire, raise their hand above their head and tap the back of their hand 3 times prior to throwing the ball in where it crossed the line after being instructed to do so by the field umpire. Players are not permitted to enter the centre square after the field umpire has commenced their approach to bounce or throw the ball up until the ball touches the ground in the act of bouncing or is thrown up. The boundary umpire is the sole judge as to whether a player has stepped completely over the line at the centre square. The boundary umpire shall, when directed by the field umpire, throw the ball in without waiting for the players to take up positions at the spot where the ball crossed the boundary line. The ball should be thrown in to a distance of between 10 to 15 metres and not less than 3 metres high consistently throughout a match. How and when the boundary umpire uses the whistle will be an indicator as to the quality of their performance. The whistle should always be blown strongly, as a strong, long whistle reflects confidence. A motto which emphasises this is, if you have to blow it strong and long.
After a goal has been scored, it's the boundary umpire's responsibility to retrieve the ball and return it to the field umpires in the centre square as quickly as possible. The boundary umpires decide who will retrieve the ball, usually the boundary umpire closest to the ball. The other boundary umpire will indicate to the field umpire which side of the oval the ball is to be returned and then position themselves no more than 5 metres in advance of the goal square kick-off line. And as a guide, in line with the behind post nearest to where the ball is collected from. This position will assist the umpires avoiding the centre corridor and reduce the possibility of colliding with players. The actual transfer of the ball from boundary umpire to boundary and then field umpire should be done as follows. Both boundary umpires should run together to a point approximately 30 metres from goal where the transfer will occur. The ball should be thrown from no closer than 5 metres. It should have a slight backspin and its trajectory should be in the form of a slight arc. It should be delivered so that the receiver can take the ball in front about waist height without changing pace. Both umpires should then accelerate to their respective positions. The boundary umpire delivering the ball to the field umpire should ensure this is carried out in a similar manner to the initial transfer as previously stated. The boundary umpire is the sole judge when the ball is out of bounds, except when the field umpire awards a mark before the ball passes completely outside the boundary line or awards a free kick. A goal umpire overrules the boundary umpire in relation to a score. The ball hits or goes directly over the behind post. In this case, the goal umpire assists the boundary umpire with the out of bounds decision. The goal umpire may overrule the boundary umpire if they consider that the ball has passed across the goal or behind line and the boundary umpire signals the ball out of bounds. The goal umpire considers that the ball has not passed across the goal or behind line and the boundary umpire is of the opinion that it has.
In instances where the boundary umpire has been positioned behind the behind post, they must wait until the goal umpire has given their decision before moving away. When the boundary umpire is caught some distance behind play and a behind has been scored, the goal umpire will tap their chest 3 times. This will inform the boundary umpire a behind has been scored. The boundary umpire will then run to the boundary line to position themselves for the kicking. When the ball hits the behind post on the full or goes directly over the behind post from a kick without having been touched by a player, the goal umpire shall give the out of bounds on the full signal until acknowledged by the boundary umpire. If the ball hits the post, the goal umpire will then tap the inside of the behind post 3 times with the hand. When the boundary umpire is stationed at the behind post for a set shot and the ball hits the behind post on the full, the boundary umpire will tap the post 3 times after signalling out of bounds on the full. When the ball hits or goes over the behind post, after having been touched by a player, the goal umpire shall give the out of bounds signal until acknowledged by the boundary umpire. If the ball hits the behind post, the goal umpire will then tap the behind post 3 times. Teamwork is important on match day to assist each of the umpires to carry out their roles in the most effective manner. At no time shall the boundary umpire turn their back to the play, even if there is a break in play. They are never to look into the public area behind them, always inward towards the field of play.
The boundary umpire has an important role at the tribunal following a report. This includes coping with the tribunal environment and working with a range of people to ensure the smooth conduct of the tribunal. Attendance and performance at the tribunal are important elements in the total reporting procedure. Before attending the tribunal, the boundary umpires should make sure they know the guidelines and instructions to boundary umpires and be prepared to state what the guidelines say if it's necessary to defend their action. At the tribunal, the boundary umpire should use positive body language, keep their statements and answers brief and precise so as to minimise opportunities for officials to react. Be prepared to correct distortion. For example, "No, I didn't say that, I said this." Remain calm, composed and stick to their evidence, remembering the umpire's role is of a witness only. Use terminology consistent with the charge. Answer questions honestly without concerning themselves with the scenario the advocate is attempting to portray. Concentrate when being asked a question. Whenever possible, they should maintain eye-to-eye contact with the person asking the question, both whilst they are asking it and the umpire is answering it, and retain a sense of humour. So there you have it, everything you need to become a Level 2 boundary umpire.
Good luck with obtaining your accreditation, and hopefully I'll see you out in the thick of the action with me, being part of the game in the AFL.
We'll catch you soon, bye for now.